I'm Helen Molyneux. Business is called Cambridge Risk Solutions, but the clue is not in the name. We're not based in Cambridge. We're actually based in Chapel-in-the-Frith, at the very edge of Derbyshire, about 2-3 miles from Whaley Bridge. I can actually say that now. People know where I live. It's quite refreshing. My husband and I run a business continuity consultancy. Our very first clients were NHS, but a long, long time ago, although obviously not that long ago because I am only 21, I was a local authority emergency officer. First of all up in North Yorkshire, then in the London Borough of Richmond upon Thames. As you may have guessed, I've moved around a little bit. Okay, have any of you actually got direct responsibility for writing a business continuity plan? A handful. Have any of you been involved in business continuity exercises? Still not a lot. Okay, well I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour. I'm going to give you the benefit of my several years in background and experience in business continuity and give you an idea of what you should be looking for in your own plans, but also, critically, or possibly even more critically, your suppliers' plans. Now you'll notice I've crossed out plans, because it isn't just about the plans, it's about the planning. I remember when I was in Richmond, I ran a multi-day agency exercise, and it had pretty much similar numbers to today, pretty much similar layout to today. We had a plan, a multi-agency plan, and we had a copy of that plan in the middle of every table, 2 or 3 copies. One of the objectives of the exercise was to test the contents of the plan. How many plans do you think were opened?
None.
None. Not one. Because people will intrinsically do what they think is the right thing. And on the whole, it will often be the right thing. But if they've done the planning, if they've been involved in the planning, they'll remember. And they'll have a better idea as to what the right thing is. Right, so what I'm going to touch on is the importance of business continuity planning. Do you know why we do it? It's been mentioned several times today, but do you know why we do it? And I'm going to ask you that question shortly. We're going to look at what should be in a plan, what makes a plan good. We're going to look at what should be in your suppliers' plans. Do you think it should actually be any different than what's in your plans? Any? Should it be any different? It'll be different content, but you're still looking at the same headings. We're going to look at what alternative evidence there might be. Some suppliers will not want to send you their plan. Do you think when I ask, do you think that Barclays and HSBC send me their plans? Because they don't. I'm going to talk about standards, and I'm going to talk about how you can look for gaps. Right. Why do we do business continuity? Any answers? Sorry?
To plan for events.
To plan for events. So, crew care home. This is just me Googling yesterday. Care home, arsonist, Derbyshire care home. This is all in the past year. This is 2019. I think there's one here from 2016. One here, another one. So I've got a couple from 2016. But I just put in care home fire 2019. It's staggering how many fires there are. That one's the old one, 2012. Another evacuation there. Electricity cut. Waste disposal. That was HES collapsing. Did that impact any of you? No? Yes? No? Oh, I love a communicative audience. Talk to me. Talk to me. Yeah, HES again. Carillion.
Oh yes.
Carillion?
Yes.
So these things happen. But there's another reason why you must do business continuity planning. Put your hands up if you're in a local authority. Did you know you have to do it by law? Civil Contingencies Act 2004 specifies, oh there's another one, sorry, that was Interserve, that you must do business continuity planning. And you've also got to promote it locally with businesses and organisations. So you've got to do it. So if you're going to do it, you may as well do it properly. Yeah? Okay. So what I'm going to do now is look at some of the relevant documents that you can use to help you and look at some of the terminology. There's loads of stuff out there. Some of it's really good, our website naturally. Some of it's not quite so good. Some of it's fairly scary. Some of it uses fairly wacky terminology, but it's an evolving profession. If you compare business continuity to health and safety, we're probably where health and safety was about 150 years ago. So we've got plenty of time to evolve yet. So, documents. Have any of you heard of ISO standards?
Yeah.
So you've got ISO 9001 is quality. ISO 22301 is the business continuity standard. It is a global recognised standard. So I'm struggling because I've got my computer glasses on, not my proper distance ones on, so I can't see properly. ISO 22313 is the guidance document. My God, it's dull. It is dull. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend that one. But it's helpful to know what it is if it's referred to. BS 11200 is crisis management. Now, if someone says to you, we've got a certificate in BS 11200, they're lying. They're lying. It's a guidance document. It's just to tell you how to do crisis management. Now, unfortunately, the people on the panel were mainly from huge corporations. So if you're from a small care home provider, you haven't got a hope of fulfilling what they're suggesting you should do. So take it with a big bag of salt. ISO PAS 22399 was the precursor to 11200. BS 25999 was the precursor to ISO 22301. So have any of you heard of BS 25999? Oh, well, it was a British standard in business continuity. Isn't it a better number? 999 in it?
Yes.
Much nicer number. Anyway, it's been superseded. So again, if someone says, oh, we've got BS 25999, belly laugh, okay? That went in 2012. It's obsolete. Part 1, well, remember this. Part 1 was the guidance document. Part 1 was actually a really readable document. It's actually quite a good readable explanation as to how to do business continuity, and you can still get it. Now, the other thing, if you have a serious case of insomnia, go to the BCI Good Practice Guidelines. Now, they are a tome about that thick. They talk about making project plans to make project plans to make project plans. I have it because I have to, because I'm a professional. Whether or not I've actually opened it is a separate issue. So that gives you an idea of some of the documents that might be mentioned. Right. ISO 22301, ISO 22313, BS 25999. They all talk about the business continuity life cycle. It is a cycle, an iterative cycle, like the whole plan, do, check, act of quality management. So, it's now just called Business Impact Analysis and Risk Assessment. It used to be called Understanding Your Business. And personally, I think Understanding Your Business is a much better title. It then goes into strategy, establishing procedures, exercise and testing. Which bit in all that do you think the plan is? Anybody? It's a little bit of this. So your business continuity plan is one little bit of your business continuity procedures. That is business continuity. Okay? So the plan is just a little bit of the evidence. Okay, so if we look at understanding the organisation, the fundamental thing is, what do you do? What do you do? Tell me, what do you do? Someone talk to me, please. There's nobody up here. Supported living accommodation. Domiciliary care. That's it?
Residential.
Residential. Okay, so it's actually understanding, what do you do? Okay. Who are your stakeholders? Who are the interested parties? Now, you've probably done loads of exercise about this, looking at it in different ways, but fundamentally, who cares about you doing what you do? Who does it have an impact on? Service users, their families, health bodies, your providers, whoever's paying for your services, staff, general public, regulators, CQC, Department of Health. There's loads of different bodies. Now, do they think that you do what you do? Or do they see it slightly differently? And are their priorities the same as your priorities? What are your priorities? Are they volume? Are they numbers? Are they financial? Are they the needs of the service users? Or are they fulfilling your statutory duties? Because all four of those might be completely and utterly contradictory. Now, I worked with a pharmaceutical company for a while, and I said to them, okay, what are your key products? I said, easy question. What are your key products? And he said, well, these are our top 10 products. And I said, why? He said, because they make the most money. I said, okay, which are your top 10 products in terms of volume? Completely different list. And I said, okay, let's think about this again. What are your top 10 products in terms of the impact on the end user? Completely different product again. So unless you, as an organisation, as a business, as whatever, unless you know exactly what you're doing, exactly what your stakeholders think you're doing, exactly what your priorities are, and what your stakeholders think your priorities are, then you're not going to be able to fully understand your business. Where are your priorities? They will be on the needs of service users, simply because they'll be shouting loudest, but you can't forget these are the priorities. And then, what do you actually need to do what you do? So you need buildings. You need utilities. You've got to have heating and light and water and telephones, staff, physical resources, equipment, consumables, food, bedding, medications, other medical supplies. I mean, what? I say, do my job. You work with a huge range of companies. And one of my companies supplies incontinence products to care homes and to people that in their own houses. I didn't even know that sort of business existed 20 years ago. Presumably in 20 years I'll be using it, but anyway, you need to know exactly what you need. IT, service users records. Now this list is not a be-all and end-all. You will know what you need to do, what you do. But if you understand what you need to do, what you do, then you're beginning to understand what you've got to plan for. Does this all make sense? Okay. So, let's look at some key terms. Risk assessment, don't you just love those words? Personally, I hate it, but that's because I've spent a lot of time looking academically at risk. So, standard risk assessment might have a little matrix, it might have likelihood versus impact. Will it happen? Yes or no, versus how bad will the impact be? Should be completely independent of each other, those two schools frequently are not. I remember sitting when Local Resilience Forum was first created, having a vote. Should it be a 4, a 5 or a 3? And what about the impact? 4 or a 5 or a 3? Well, I think it should be a 2. And it was debate. And the thing is, with rare events, because these are rare events, statistically, you can't say accurately. So to me, risk assessment is actually a very useful tool for mitigation. If you have a pot of money, where are you going to prioritise it on preventing things happening? So if you've got a stretch of rail that goes from A to B, which is the riskiest part, so you can spend that pot of money on that riskiest part. It doesn't actually help an awful lot in terms of the actual business continuity planning. That's my fourth contentious statement of the day. Other things you might see in that risk assessment, I've seen vulnerability, I've seen acceleration. Acceleration was an incredible one. So how quickly this thing will happen. Realistically, I'm not sure that any of those will add benefit, but you will have a risk assessment. Now that risk assessment is not necessarily being used by the business continuity manager, because the business continuity manager will be doing their own risk assessment. So how many risk assessments do you have in your organisation? How many of you have more than one? Yeah, loads. Loads. How many of you have more than one methodology? Yeah. Just a thought. Okay. Business impact analysis, doesn't that sound grand? The BIA. Right, the BIA looks at that list and it says, okay, at what point we need 4 beds? At what point do we need 2 beds? what point do we need 3 beds, or what point do we need 4 beds? So it's daytime, we don't need a bed till tonight. So within, I don't know what time it is now, well, I'm quite tired, so within 8 hours, we'll need 1 bed for me. By 10 hours, we'll need 2 beds, but by the end of the night, we'll need 4 beds. So the BIA is starting to develop your plan. You don't need to know if it's a flood, you don't need to know if it's a fire, you don't need to know if it's an evacuation because your supply has failed. You just know that within 10 hours, you need 4 beds. Okay, so BIA. That's the bit that in a business continuity project will take about 1/3 of the time. It's a big piece of work. But equally, some people do it to a huge degree. I remember doing a piece of work with an NHS trust, and I was chatting with them later at coffee, and they've been doing their BIA. It'd taken them 18 months, and they were up to the podiatrist. What? Still hadn't started to plan. And the podiatrists were doing the BIA, and they said, no! Okay. RTO and RPO. Have any of you heard of RTO and RPO? Don't it sound grand? Recovery time objective is how quickly do you need things back up and running? Recovery point objective is how much can you afford to lose? I did some work with an oil exploration company. It sounded really exciting, except I got stuck in an office in Reading or somewhere. Anyway, they had oil exploration going on in Azerbaijan. Now, if something happened in Azerbaijan, they needed email straight away. They needed to be able to communicate. So email, RTO, recovery time objective, how quickly do we need it? 2 minutes, 3 minutes. They needed to be able to communicate with the UK. The geological data that they've been drilling for, because it was exploration, well, if something happened in Azerbaijan, they weren't going to be rebuilding it for quite a long time. So they didn't need access to it straight away. So the RTO was months. However, it costs a fortune to get that drilling data. So the RPO, they couldn't afford to lose anything. So the RPO, they could afford to lose about 30 minutes later. The RPO for emails, they didn't care about the historical email straight away. They just needed the ability to be able to communicate. So for example, if I put it in the context of your service user records, how long do you have to keep them for? 7 years? Sorry?
Depends what they are.
7 years?
Yeah.
Is it 7 years for everybody?
No, it depends what they are.
Depends what they are.
Keep them for life or something.
So, RPO, you can't afford to lose that data because you're covered by legislation, by regulatory duties to keep hold of that data. Do you actually need the ability to add stuff to it straight away? Possibly not, because you can write it on a piece of paper and catch up later. So the RPO is defining how much information you can afford to lose. Can you afford to lose a days, a weeks? And the RTO is how quickly do you actually need access to it. So if you've got your service users records on computers, how much can you afford to lose? It's basically defining your backup period. How quickly do you need access to it? How quickly does it need to be back up and running? Does that all make sense? So this all comes out in the BIA. Right. Oh. Okay, what's your emergency management team equivalent called?
Well, I've got a health protection civil contingencies function.
That's it, that isn't on the list. Every organisation I go to, I'm determined to smash everything here, got different names for their emergency management team, incident management team, crisis management team, crisis leadership team, incident leadership team, strategic management team. Know what it's called. Have a simple name that doesn't clash with anything else in the organisation and have a clear understanding. I mean, they often you'll have heard them used, and you might well know terminology yourselves, gold, silver, bronze, but you probably won't use gold, silver, bronze internally. Give it a nice clear name. So more acronyms. Okay. Right, so what actually is business continuity? And this is where a lot of people get themselves in quite a knot. This is the official definition from ISO 22301. It's the capability of an organisation to continue delivery of products or services at acceptable predefined levels following a disruptive incident. You predefine the levels before it happens. So you say, okay, in actual fact, if something happens, do we need day services to continue? How long can we continue without day services before they start to impact on residential services, for example? So there will be some things that you do not need to carry on with, and you work those out beforehand, so that your plan is focused on returning what is acceptable back to normality. So you've worked out what you need, and now is the time to write your great big document. Okay, so what should be in a plan? Scope. Who does the plan apply to? Does it apply to the podiatrists? Does your plan encompass your providers? Is it a joint plan? Do people who are encompassed in that plan know that they're in that plan? Invocation. That's a very fancy word for saying call out. How are you actually going to invoke the plan? How are you going to decide that the plan's been invoked? Now, this is a really interesting one for me, because you're setting an RTO. So you're saying, right, email has to be recovered in 2 hours. We need those beds within 10 hours. Is that 10 hours from the incident, or is that 10 hours from the invocation? And if only the crisis management team are allowed to do the invocation, and they get together and are like, ooh, do we call it yet? Do we call it yet? When's your 2 hours and your 10 hours start ticking? So invocation is so often glossed over and so often not done. I have a client, previous pharmaceutical client, whose roof blew off, completely flooding their warehouse of products. They got blocked in with snow, and they had fire. Alarms went off. One of the buildings was evacuated for 3 days. Do you think they invoked? Once. They spent, I don't know how many £1,000 with me over a period of time, and they never once invoked. Then why? Why? Because by invoking, you're getting people onto the same footing.
Yes.
And you're actually better invoking. So like at the moment, you're having meetings on Brexit. Brexit isn't happening. It might. But it's not happening, so you've got that foot on the ground, ready to go. So when the flood waters are rising, when, is it a flood crisis when it's knee deep or thigh deep? Well, if you're meeting regularly when it's ankle deep, at least you're on top of things. Incident management. Who's actually in your incident management team? Who has authority? Who has responsibility for ensuring that different things have been done? This does not mean that your HR manager has to be responsible for all things HR. It just means that your HR manager might be the person that's allocated to make sure those things have been done. It might be that somebody else is allocated to do that. How many of you have roles in an incident management team? How many of you have that role? This is going to be a difficult question. Be honest. How many of you have that role because of your job title, rather than because you're the best person to do that role, which obviously you're the best person anyway? So how many organisations have the CEO as the chair, when in actual fact the CEO is often at meetings and never around anyway? So who's the best person to be in that incident management team, regardless of rank, etc.? Business recovery. Now this is some business recovery and incident management. Something I mentioned before, gold, silver, bronze, and everybody gets very hot under the collar about the training for gold and the training for silver and the training for bronze. Bronze teams are the people at the coalface, people doing the job. Bronze teams are doing the same job. So your care worker, who's in the bronze team, will still be doing care. Might be a different location, but they'll still be doing care. Your IT worker will still be doing IT. They'll be recovering IT, be doing it differently, but they're still doing IT. Your gold team will meet maybe once a day just to have a big strategic discussion. The people that need the training are that silver management team. Right, that's enough on that. Business recovery is about how you get things back up and running. You've got the information from your BIA. Communications. Oh. Communications is my real bugbear. How many of you actually use your communications team to promulgate the message of business continuity? Yeah, I know, Wigan, we're tries with you.
They're fundamental.
No, totally. But, you know, a lot of organisations have communications teams. Use them. It's difficult, I know. I think I've been running my business now for 12 years, and I think we've had one exercise where the comms team have actually deigned to show up. We've had one client where we've reviewed the comms plan 6 times, 6 years, we've audited the same document. But you know, if they want to pay us to do that, that's fine by me. But involve your comms teams, they are the experts. Plus the fact you've got to do it because you've got a legal authority to communicate. What else to look for? So when you're given your plan to look at, look for, is it up to date? Has it actually got the right date on it, or is it 2012? Has it got document control on it? So that you know that this is the latest version, that all previous versions have been scrapped. Has it been authorised? Has someone with authority actually signed it off and said, yes, I agree with this, it's a true representation of what we will do? Is it complete? Have they got lots of blue bits to fill in here? Name wanted, title wanted, question mark, ... XXX. Or has it just been cut and pasted? I got sent a classic one the other day. I got sent their business continuity plan and their data privacy statement. It was a business. And it was talking about students and loading their cash cards. I thought they need to do a bit more cutting. If it is cut and paste from somewhere else, it implies they haven't done their planning. They've just done the plan. So, what do you need to do? Business continuity is a cycle. So you don't write your plan and that's it, you can sit on your thumbs and sort of... It's got to be regularly reviewed, it's got to be kept up to date. Your staff all need to be aware that there is a plan. You need to do training. Training at all levels of the organisation. Contact details, are they up to date? Now it used to be that you'd have a phone list in the bottom of the plan and you'd have all the concerns about data privacy, and if we've got that phone number, does that mean they're on call, so therefore do we have to pay them? And I remember all those discussions when I was at local authority. Nowadays, most people will actually have their team relevant contacts in their phone. And mine is absolutely fine. I mean, I do not lose this, it goes with me everywhere, apart from when I turn off the wrong one. But just check, have you got the most up-to-date details? Have you got your new team member in there? Internal audit, check it, validate it, regular review and continual improvement. Exercises. Now the standard says that you should exercise your plan in its entirety. Incident management. I'm just going to read, sorry, I remember those first, a line from, this is from ISO 22301, and they have a whole clause on leadership. So paragraph 5.1, leadership and commitment. Persons in top management and other relevant management roles throughout the organisation shall demonstrate leadership with respect to the BCMS. I'm not going to embarrass you by asking how many of you have chief execs that do turn up for the exercise, or that have chief execs that turn up for the first couple of minutes, slope off to do work and then come back for the wrapping up. You need to have demonstrable commitment to it. Communications. Communications, communications, communications. Even simple things. Because if you can imagine sitting in a team like this, within your incident management team, and the phone rings. So does everybody stop to listen to the message so that everyone knows all that's going on, the latest update? Or does one person answer the phone, take the message, but everybody else is busy, so when do they actually give that update? So even within your incident management team, how do you practice those communications? How do you manage them? Working from from alternate locations. Now you can't do that with the service users, you can't just shove them around from A to B, but your back office users have snow days. Brilliant. Just write it up. IT backups, call cascades, have you actually checked that you can communicate with all your staff? All these exercises need to be done. If you have an incident, write it up. Post-incident review. Because remember, a lesson isn't learned if it's only been identified. And everyone talks about lessons learned, but they're not learned till they've been implemented. So, understand the root cause. And I can tell you, if you delve deep enough in root cause, it will fundamentally come down to training and awareness, leadership and resources, if you dig deep enough. And then that all realistically comes down to leadership. Take the corrective action to fix whatever went wrong, consider if there's any improvement actions, and then think about the adequacy, so check those actions have worked. And I'll give you a classic one. I did an audit of a fire brigade, and one of the fire stations had done an exercise. And their feedback from the exercise was, we would like a flowchart. The next fire station had done an exercise. Now I know they tend to copy and paste. And I know that because the same spelling mistakes were there. But they had also said, we want a flowchart. The third fire station said exactly the same thing. And I said, well, yeah, corrective action, give them a flowchart. Improvement action, do the other fire stations want the same thing? Further improvement action, is there anything else within the plan that we can flowchart? So don't just get siloed into that one little action. And then check that the action has been good, and check it's been communicated. I mean, just an aside, I'm a chair for a scouting group, and our scouts had a bit of a fire. I think something along the lines of the boiler burns dry, the boiler can't burn dry because if it burns dry, the button melts, and if the button melts, you can't turn it off. So he decided to turn it off by disconnecting the gas bottle, hence this jet of flame, which has destroyed most of the scouts' equipment. Turns out this is the second incident in Derby County in this year alone. Why isn't this being communicated? Why isn't the training trickling down? And it's because the action's been taken, we've sent them to hospital, we've put the insurance claim in, but then the root cause hasn't been looked at, and it hasn't been communicated back down through county and back out to the other counties. Okay, and what else do you need to do? Supply chain. Know your supply chain. And who's actually going to do it? So if a supplier is good enough to send you their plan, you want to see exactly the same things that you see in your plan. It'll be written in a different way, it might be written in a very upside down way. It's what works for them. Especially if they've not bothered with cutting and pasting. But there are other ways that the supplier might want to demonstrate that they are doing business continuity. So they might send you an ISO 22301 certificate. We've got a standard. What is fundamentally wrong with just accepting that standard? Any answers, anybody? No, especially if I've audited it. No, it would be good. No, the problem is, they're saying we do business continuity. But in that plan, so for example, my company that makes toilet pads, incontinence pads, their plan will say, we will do business continuity, we will get the phones back up and running within 4 hours, we will be dealing with our home care patients within 3 days because we know they've got enough stock, we will be dealing with care homes within 5 days because we know they've got enough stock. And that's their plan, and that's been certified, and it's been exercised. Is 5 days what you're expecting in your care home? So there could be a disconnect. So it's not, you can't just say, have you got ISO 22301? You have to say, what is your RTO in relation to the service that you're providing to us? ISO 22301 will prove they're doing all those things, which I'm not going to dwell on. They might send you a policy, they might send you exercise reports, post-incident reports, they might be heavily redacted. If they're sending you exercise reports, fine, because they're proving that they are regularly doing things. They're doing it in their own way, and that's fine. But you need to have some sort of evidence that your suppliers are able and in a position to supply what you need. And again, I think I've mentioned that before, so that's a question that could be asked again. With respect to your service to us, what is your recovery time? At what point can we expect to receive 100% of the service that we need? Because what they have in their plans, which have been audited, might not be what you need. So, in summary, I hope I've covered how important it all is. I've dwelt at great length about what should be in a plan and suppliers' plans. I've talked about standards. I think I've pretty much covered everything there. I do have a more detailed questionnaire. If you do want one, I can give you that to you later. And I think we're going into panel discussion anyway, so I won't go on that one. That's me. Risk Ready is our new name when we get our new website done. We are local, we are based in the Northwest. So if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. And thank you.